Number three is telling lies or being dishonest. If you notice that your partner has a tendency to tell lies or is not honest, that is a deal breaker, because first of all, it means you will reach a point where you can't really trust what they tell you. And once trust is broken, it is almost impossible to rebuild it. Trust is a very fragile, item in a relationship. So it is important to safeguard it. So if you notice that your partner tells lies easily, not, it doesn't have any problems speaking lies to you or to other people. So this doesn't mean that it's just to you. If you notice they lie to other people also, then you need to pay attention, because that's a red flag. Welcome to Reggenerate. My name is Regina, and once again I want to welcome you to discuss a topic that is going to help all of us in terms of our relationships. And today we are going to look at relationship red flags. What is a red flag in a relationship? These are warning signs that there may be something wrong in terms of patterns and behavior between the partners in that relationship. And these are behaviors like aggression, abuse, those are well known. But red flags can also be other subtle behaviors that may not be as obvious as the ones we would normally spot. And these are behaviors like gaslighting or manipulation, which may not be, very quick to pick. Now we are going to look at some of the unhealthy or unacceptable behaviors that can be referred to as red flags, and which are important for us to to focus or to pay attention to in our relationship, so that we save ourselves from a lot of problems later on. So we will look at some of these. One is unhealthy levels of jealousy. That is number one. When people are in love, or the relationship is very new, there's a feeling that when one of the partners seems a bit jealous, it may feel like it's a nice thing, like they want me all to themselves, that kind of thing. And there's really nothing wrong with some level of jealousy. I mean, nobody wants to see their partners running around with other people, but when it becomes excessive, when it is too much, it may make the other partner feel smothered and not able to live freely, to have freedom to live their lives the way they want. So if there's excessive jealousy, or if there's unhealthy levels of jealousy, that is something to pay attention to, because it will not end well. And number two is controlling behavior. At the beginning of your relationship, you may not notice your partner controlling you, and this is because control is a very subtle kind of way of manipulation. And so at first you may not notice, but eventually and over time you will notice that your partner wants to control everything about you. They want to know where you are, at what time, where are you going, with who, what time will you be back, what will you be doing. All these are attempts to control how you relate, not only with this person but also with other people. So if the control is not a one-off kind of thing, if it's not an incident that just happened, if it is the behavior of this particular person, that's a red flag, because eventually you will notice that you will lose your freedom as the relationship goes on. Number three is telling lies or being dishonest. If you notice that your partner has a tendency to tell lies or is not honest, that is a deal breaker, because first of all, it means you will reach a point where you can't really trust what they tell you. And once trust is broken, it is almost impossible to rebuild it. Trust is a very fragile, item in a relationship. So it is important to safeguard it. So if you notice that your partner tells lies easily, not, it doesn't have any problems speaking lies to you or to other people. So this doesn't mean that it's just to you. If you notice they lie to other people also, then you need to pay attention, because that's a red flag, or they are not honest. Number 4, if they constantly criticize you, and especially if they criticize you in public, and it's not a constructive kind of criticism. It's a criticism, or it's criticizing you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable or embarrassed, or shames you in front of people. This is not a good thing. So the reason why this is important is because if you allow it to continue, it takes a toll on your self-esteem. And eventually, if you continue in this relationship and this behavior continues, you will eventually discover that your self-esteem is eroded completely, and you don't have any left. You don't value yourself. You can't even lift your head in front of people. It's because you allowed this to continue. And so criticizing you, and especially in a not so good way, it's something you need to pay attention to. That doesn't mean that you can't take correction, or you can't you can't listen to someone telling you some things about what you can change. I'm talking about, like, there's a bit of malice, there may be a bit of malice in it, or there may be an attempt to actually make you feel embarrassed. So it's important to pay attention to that and address it. If they are rude, and I'm not just talking about rudeness towards you, if they are rude to other people, and especially to people who are like the service people, like let's say you go to a restaurant and this person is rude to the waiters, or you're in a public transportation and they are rude to the conductors and people like that. That's not a good sign. That's actually a very red flag, because that's a behavior that exhibits that this person can actually abuse their office. If they're in a position of authority and influence, they can take advantage, or they don't have kindness towards people who are less, who they perceive to be less than them, who they perceive to be lower than them. And therefore this is a person you need to really be very cautious about if you're going to continue in a relationship with them. So pay attention to someone who is rude, and especially to people they perceive to be lower in position, especially position in society and this kind of thing. And they have a sense of entitlement, by the way. That kind of person, they have this sense of, I am entitled to receive this kind of treatment from you. So being rude, even if they're not being rude to you, you need to really pay attention. It's a red flag. A lack of healthy communication. As we all know, communication is very important in any relationship. There is no relationship that is going anywhere if there is no clear, healthy communication. So if you find that you don't have a healthy relationship, you're not able to communicate well, either the person feels judged or criticized every time you raise the idea that you need to talk about this, or we need to discuss this. If they don't handle that well, you can be sure that your relationship is not going anywhere. So you need to pay attention to someone who does not engage in healthy relationship, because first of all, it's also going to frustrate you, and you cannot really build a relationship, because how will you plan? How will you discuss the future? How will you discuss how you need to live? So healthy relationship, if someone is not able or is not willing to engage in healthy healthy communication, that is a red flag. This is number 7, lack of compromise. Relationships is about meeting each other halfway. It's not a one-sided kind of affair. Relationships is about compromise. You will not all like the same thing. You will not both have the same preferences. So it's about allowing the other person also to express themselves, to express what they like, their desires, their challenges, and listening to one another. It's a give and take. So if the other person is not willing to compromise, if you find yourself giving, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. So pay attention. Number 8, an inability or an unwillingness to face difficulties. And what do I mean? There is no relationship that is not going to face challenges. Somewhere along the way, if you engage long enough and not so long enough, you are bound to come across challenges. Now, if your partner is not willing or is not able to face challenges or face difficult times, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. Whichever way you look at it, whether they are willing or whether they are unwilling to do it, or whether they are unable to do it, because it means at some point when you need help, at some point when you need their backup, at some point when you may be in trouble, or you may be facing a challenge, or you may be in very dire straits, and you need them to help you, you need them to back you up, you need them to help you navigate a difficult situation, they will not be there. They will run away. So that's not someone you want to hang around with. So pay attention to someone who is unable or unwilling. And if they are unable, it's probably because they have challenges. Maybe they have mental or emotional challenges which they probably need to work on. But if they're unwilling, then all the more reason to run away from there. A lack of commitment, lack of support, that's number 9. This means that they are not really committed. You're never able to tell whether your relationship is not flourishing. So they are not committed. You can't really plan on anything because they are not there fully. And if they're not committed, then where are you going? What are you doing? If you are in a relationship with a person like this, one of the ways you can start feeling, or you can start telling that they're not committed, is if you start getting a feeling that you're not heard or you're not seen. Like you're talking, but you get a sense of this person is actually not listening to me. It's like they don't really hear. And maybe you can prove it by later bringing up that topic and you realize the person didn't actually listen to you. That's a lack of commitment, and it's a clear indication that you may not really be able to build anything with this person. Number 10, if they require constant affirmation, constant reassurance, constant affirmation, if they always depend on you to keep. All of us want to be, affirmed. All of us want to be, to be encouraged. But if this person is constantly in need of you reassuring them and affirming them, they need you to, validate them, then you may not want to pursue this relationship, because this be a person who may not be emotionally okay, in terms of they may not be in a place where they can build a healthy relationship with you. So you need to pay attention to that. Someone who is constantly in need of reassurance, affirmation, validation from you, because you may find yourself in a codependent kind of relationship. If you're nervous to introduce this person to your family and your friends, that's a red flag. If you're nervous, if you're the one nervous, you don't want to, you feel a bit jittery when you think about introducing them to your family or your friends, you need to ask yourself why. And this may actually, the other person may not actually have an issue, it may be you. So you need to look at yourself and find out, are there issues that I need to deal with first, or is there something that I can sense in this person that is making me nervous, and therefore I don't feel like I should introduce him or her to my family or to my friends. So if you find yourself a bit nervous or taking long to introduce this person, then that's a red flag. That's a red flag. So these are some of the things that you can look at that would indicate that your relationship may be on shaky ground, or your relationship need to be looked into before you pursue it or before you continue. But how do you handle the red flags? One, the most important thing is do not ignore. Do not ignore red flags. Do not assume them. Do not ignore someone who is rude. Do not ignore lies. Do not ignore someone who is controlling you. Do not ignore when you feel manipulated, when you feel ignored, or when you feel pressured to validate someone. So don't ignore red flags. That's the first thing. You need to address them. You need to confront the person with some of the issues. If you catch someone lying or being dishonest, don't ignore it. You need to address. And as you discuss these red flags, also listen to what the other person is saying, because they also have an explanation to give you. So it's important to pay attention to the red flags that you notice. Sometimes the red flags are more visible to your friends and family, and they may point this to you. So if that happens, if they notice those things before you do, it is important to listen and to pay attention, and then so that you can address. So if you're in your effort to address these red flags, if you notice that your partner is not really committed, is not paying attention, or does not feel it's important, then you can be sure that your relationship is not going anywhere. So you need to do the needful and just save yourself from hurt and from a broken heart later on. So thank you, and we will see you in our next video.